The final speaker for this session is going to give us an update on the Asian giant hornet. Svin-Erik Spichiger, I hope I pronounced that right, from the WSDA. So take it away, Svin-Erik.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to try the screen sharing thing here and we'll see if we can get it all working. All right. Now, can you tell me what you're seeing?
We see the thank you for your attention slide.
Perfect. Let's see if we can get this going. And are you seeing the presenter view or the display view?
The display view. I believe this is the view you want.
Okay, perfect. Now I just gotta be able to. There we go. And all right, you can hear me, and now you can see the opening slide, correct?
Yes, but
all
we
right.
are seeing the slides on the left, so you're not in the slideshow. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, we're good now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All righty, well, thank you very much. My name's Sven Spichiger. I'm the managing entomologist with the Washington State Department of Agriculture. I was asked to give you an update on Asian giant hornet, and we just got back from kind of a crazy week with it. We did manage to trap a live one last week, and attempt to track it back to the nest didn't go so well. I'll touch on that a little bit later. But just let you know, give an introduction on this pest to everybody who's listening, in case you haven't heard of it yet. And if you haven't, I would be shocked, because in May we went internationally viral with one little news clip. So without further ado, but before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to just provide a friendly reminder to all beekeepers that you need to register your bees. This is a law. The fees go to support honeybee research, mostly over at the WSU Honeybee Research Center. This provides information and allows you to get important alerts. For example, when Asian giant hornet was first detected, all registered beekeepers were sent with their registration a pest alert that allowed us to let beekeepers know that this was happening. Also, it does actually provide information to WSDA to report on the status of apiculture in Washington. And why is this important? Well, I can tell you the federal government has actually been extremely supportive, sending funds to help us and to help you and to help the rest of the citizens of Washington try to deal with this new threat. But the very first question they asked me is, how many beehives are there in Washington? And every time I asked this question, I got a resounding, well, there's about 1,700 beekeepers registered, but that's probably only about 30% of them. The federal government is not really impressed with those kinds of numbers and did ask us, is it really a threat? And so it's kind of like doing the census. This is your chance to stand up and be counted and to have help come your way when help is needed. And so for no other reason alone, just to say that beekeeping is strong and alive and well in Washington is a great reason to register your hives. The real quick look at the law here, it basically says if you have one or more hives, you're a broker renting hives, and you're a resident in another state who operates hives, you shall register your hive with the director April 1st of each year. Now the director's a couple of bosses up from me. The registration application includes, and this is kind of important, name, address, and phone number of the apiarist or broker. And again, that allows us to, that basically allows us to contact you if an issue comes up with honeybee hives. We don't really use it to track on you for any other reason, but it's pretty important for us to know this. There is a registration fee involved. And you do this by visiting this website, and I'll pause on that briefly, although if you just type in apiary on the WSDA website, you will get here pretty quick. And you click on that little blue button down towards the bottom to complete your apiary registration. And you can see for a beekeeper like me, I have 1 or 2 hives at any one time. It's $5. It's an overwhelming fee. It can get pretty bad if you have a lot of hives, up to $300. But again, all of this goes over for honeybee research. WSDA doesn't really keep anything out of all of this except for a way to contact beekeepers. So, you know, just again, friendly reminder, I had to take time to do it. Sorry for being preachy, but now I'll let you know what's going on with Asian giant hornet. All right, so on December 8th, there was a Blaine, Washington resident reported a specimen of what they believe to be Asian giant hornet to the Washington Invasive Species Council app. Actually, he posted the pictures on Reddit first, and then somebody on Reddit told him, hey, you might want to report this. But hey, eventually we got the report. That was on a Saturday. The report came in on Monday the 10th, and he was able to meet with us on December 12th. We went up, and that is the actual specimen that he handed us. And it was, I mean, I looked at it and I was kind of in shock. This is a pest that's been on my radar since 2013. I always expected we might encounter this. Never in my wildest dreams thought we would encounter this in December of any given year. So it just goes to show you that, you know, things are kind of changing and things are a little weird. Insects and other invasive pests have a way to get here a lot better than they used to, and they seem to be able to survive in all kinds of habitats and climates that maybe we didn't expect. This is one of 23 recognized species of true hornets, and so they would all be in the genus Vespa. So if you're in the genus Vespa, you are a hornet. There are 23 in the world. None of them are native to Washington or North America. There is one species called the European hornet, or Vespa crabro, that has been established in eastern North America for many, many decades. In fact, it was introduced as biological control. It didn't work out so well, but it has been pretty firmly established since the early 1900s. Asian giant hornet is the largest hornet in the world. The adults range from 1.5 to 2.5 inches in length. We have a picture of one kind of side by side with what we call bald-faced hornet here, which is actually a yellow jacket species. And this is about as big as we get for stinging vespid wasps and hornets and yellow jackets. And you can see it's quite a bit larger and very noticeable. We get a lot of reports about these. People think they've seen something with yellow stripes. We've had beetles turned in. We've had all kinds of good stuff turned in. But I think the easiest way for you to know if you're dealing with Asian giant hornet is just take a look at the head. The head is freakishly large and oversized. And so you have this giant orange on top of basically a hornet body. It's actually almost as wide or wider than the thorax if you take a look at that. And that is the number one thing. If you can get a picture, of the head, that helps us on the other end of the line trying to sort out all these reports know that we're dealing with something serious or one of the natives. Also, you'll notice a bunch of yellow-orange bands on the abdomen, and if you notice down below where the stinger is, there's a very bright yellow triangular segment. There are many other species of hornets, but this one, the one that's ours, has the last segment yellow, as you can see here. It resembles some of our native species. Some are comparable in size, like some of the sawflies pictured to the left of it. We have Asian giant hornet in the middle. We even have a couple of wasps that are also kind of rivaling it in size, and we get a lot of people turning in horntails like the one below it. But again, if you look at all of our native species here, you'll notice the only one that has a huge yellow head, again, is Asian giant hornet, and that's the one that really helps us do a really quick ID, if you will. There's some other things we have to look at eventually, but this is what helps you sort it out from some of the natives you may encounter. Most of our native species are beneficial and serve an important role in Washington's ecosystem. So we're not after everybody to kill every bald-faced hornet or every cicada killer that they encounter. but it is good to get a photograph and report it if you're not sure. Asian giant hornet tends to nest in the ground, and this makes it particularly dangerous for humans and pets, possibly cattle, horses, other things like that. And then one of the nests that was first found in North America, which was before we got our report, was in September of 2019. An entire nest was located in a public park in Nanaimo, British Columbia, Canada. And this was literally only a few feet off of a public walking trail. They were very fortunate to find it and deal with this nest before an incident happened where people were attacked. So the risk for humans is basically, though it's unlikely, if you disturb a nest, Asian giant hornet will defend it, and it will defend it rigorously. You will need to leave the area. They will continue to sting you many, many times. The stinger is up to 6 millimeters in length, and that is pretty large. You could see it's serrated on both sides, and it delivers a huge amount of venom. And unfortunately, they don't die after stinging you one time like our honeybees do. The hornet can sting you multiple times, and they will not die after stinging you multiple times. So there's the potential, if you accidentally disturb a nest, to really be severely impacted by these. Though most people don't die from one sting, if you get stung multiple times, it can actually be a life-threatening situation. This species was on my radar because in 2013, conditions were right that 42 people died in southern China when a few nests were very close to a town at the bottom of a wheat field that the villagers were working in. And a lot of the people who didn't die have suffered basically extremely debilitating lifelong injuries, which include organ failure and some other things, nasty things like that. So again, we're not trying to scare anybody, but we do want to make sure people understand how serious this pest can be if it gets into close contact with humans. Some tips for working safely near Asian giant hornet: of course, be alert if you are performing field work in an area with a detection. Right now, all of our detections are in Whatcom County, and for those calling or listening in from around the state, if you don't know where Whatcom County is, it's the county that borders Canada directly north of Seattle. And you can always find our latest reports at the website that you're seeing now, but I like to say just go Google WSDA and hornets, and you'll end up getting right to our page there. If you encounter a nest, we'd ask that you note the location, calmly leave the area, and report the detection to us immediately. We're actually very good at responding. There's only a few of us. We're located all over the state, but we literally can hop in the vehicles and be there, and that's what we're being paid to do, so we're happy to do it. We'd like you to try to stay on managed paths and trails. So if you're out in the woods and you're hunting, avoid walking through the very edge of the tree line. Here in Washington, that's not too tough because the Himalayan blackberry kind of prevents you from walking where these things might nest. But, just in case, we're just telling people try to stay on trails if at all possible if you are in an infested area. And avoid wearing strong fragrances or perfumes, as these can sometimes attract hornets and other stinging insects. You also want to be on guard when working around ripened tree fruit, berries, grapes. Most hornets feed on these. In fact, in the eastern US, when I was a state entomologist a few years back, I was often called to orchards being attacked by European hornet. And basically they'll go after recently ripened apples or pears or peaches even. They'll chew a hole in it and they'll visit these throughout the day, feeding on the ripened fruit. And so we ask you to be careful if you know Asian giant hornet is in the area when you're out picking apples. Hornets are also attracted to sugary beverages like juice and soda. If you can remember going to fall football games or going to a fair, and if you bought an orange soda, you'll have yellow jackets buzzing all around you. Same sort of thing with the hornets. Consider an alternative when doing field work like water. You'll be a little safer with that. And again, if you encounter a live hornet, don't attempt to handle it. Take a photo if possible, note the location, and report it. That's really what we need folks to do if they're working in an area where Asian giant hornets are known to be. We worked with the Department of Health to develop a sting chart. I did mention that one sting is rarely fatal unless you have a severe allergy to it. But if you start getting multiple stings, it can be pretty serious. And so if you go to our website, you can eventually locate this, basically the sting chart and what to do if you are stung by them. A little bit more about the life cycle. Asian giant hornet overwinters as a queen. And it's either a mated queen or an unmated queen. Queens emerge in the spring, and workers are found throughout the summer and the fall. New queens and drones are produced in the fall, and this is where it starts to become important for honeybee, apiarists. So a special note about managed honeybees, and the photos you're seeing right now were actually taken by beekeeper Ted McFall of the Mount Baker Beekeepers. We actually believe this to be an Asian giant hornet attack for a number of reasons. His location to known positives, the fact that other beekeepers in the area actually documented attacks on their hives and collected specimens associated with them. All of this basically says to us, this is kind of what the carnage will look like. And so what ends up happening is a scout Asian giant hornet will locate a hive that looks suitable to it. It will mark the hive, it will coax out the honeybees and simply slaughter them. They will decapitate them, leave them as a pile of dead bodies, and then they will spend the next couple of weeks or next couple of days even harvesting the brood and the pupae from the hive. And this is what they will be feeding on. We're told Asian giant hornets will defend a hive that they are harvesting. And we know that this behavior starts this month. The earliest recorded one we don't have an exact date, is from a beekeeper in Blaine who believes it was either late September or early October that he lost 5 hives to Asian giant hornet in 2019. He managed to capture a few and save them in a jar for us, and we didn't find out about that until June of this year. So we do know that they are actually actively attacking hives in Whatcom County, and this is cause of great concern for us at the WSDA, because as far as we know, it is a very small population of hornets, and even though they're just starting to try to get established, they're already attacking and impacting apiaries where they're at. And so something certainly to take seriously if you are a beekeeper. These are native to Southeastern Asia, most common in Japan and South Korea, and you can see some data that was reported back in January of 2020, and you can see they're kind of into Russia and certainly Taiwan. I believe they're rare in Hong Kong and some of the other outer islands there, but mostly from Japan and Korea. After we got our detection in 2019, we started meeting almost immediately. It was December 8th. We were answering a lot of phone calls the week of Christmas, actually, and we were able to get together with the USDA and our counterparts from Canada on a call on January 2nd. We decided that we would try to implement a pretty aggressive outreach and communications plan, and that has paid off big. We actually got about half of the reports and detections this year from the outreach plan. We were also going to trap and track live specimens of Asian giant hornet and eradicate any nests that were located. We would also take some time this year to research new detection and eradication methods. And so around February, the USDA actually came out with a pretty good response plan that was fairly well researched and gave us a bunch of options. And so the number one option we decided to go with was actually a style of bottle trap that's used mostly in Nagoya, Japan. And it's pretty simple. It's a 64-ounce juice bottle, if you will. They can be a little smaller, a little larger, and it is baited with 1 cup of rice wine and orange juice. And this is kind of the one we went with. There were some other options available. We have tested some of the other options. Those might include mixtures of grape juice, rice wine, and something called Calpis, which is a fermented milk drink that is actually available here in the US, but not all that popular, if you can imagine. I've tasted it. It's really just sugar in a bottle. It's very sweet substance. We've also tested acetic acid and isobutanol, and this is supposed to attract queens. We've tested a few other things. I'll talk about these later, but the one we decided to settle on was this orange juice and rice wine mixture, and that's because we wanted the public to assist us in the survey. We didn't just want to put it all on one or two people. We wanted to give the ability for anybody who cares about this to spend, you know, 20 bucks, whatever it costs to run a trap for a year. That's about what it's costing me at home. And you need to basically pick something that people can get their hands on. A lot of the other bait combinations have some very difficult to find ingredients, and even the rice wine proved to be a bit of a challenge for some people, but we did manage to get this up and running. As of Friday, I think I finished the PowerPoint here, we had 867 bottle traps up that are being run by WSDA employees. There are 325 cooperator traps. And cooperator traps I'll go over in a little bit. And we actually had citizen scientists place 1,208 as of Friday, and this is just wonderful. It really thrills us that the public has really got in behind this and really helped us to focus what resources we have in the area that we know we have a problem. So around the 2019 detection points, and there were 4 to be fair, and they were centered very close to Blaine. We had one specimen immediately, which was the original, and we had a second one, which was turned into WSU by a beekeeper. We come to find out in June, we had another one turned in, and then we had the bee kill in Custer that we were counting as live, and that's what we knew going into the 2020 trapping season. The idea was to put a 1 kilometer grid, which exists all around the country for surveying other pests, centered around these detections, and for 2 kilometers out from that detection, we would place 3 traps per 1K by 1K grid. 2 traps per grid between 2 kilometers and 4 miles, and then 1 trap per grid between 4 kilometers and 8 kilometers. The reason for this is it is known that Asian giant hornet will forage up to 8 kilometers from its nest. They usually operate between 1 to 2 kilometers. So about a mile, if you will. That's about as far as they usually operate, but they can go up to 8 kilometers. And it's not the best strategy because that's the forage, and unfortunately, we and no one else who has dealt with this pest over the years has ever figured out how far a mated queen will disperse, but this was as good a starting point as we could find. Things happened pretty fast in the spring, and we ended up adding a second grid down in Bellingham, which we had to pull some extra people out of the field and then make use of a lot of the citizen scientist traps. But that's the red dot you see down towards Bellingham there. We started out with 2 techs running these grids up towards the Blaine area there. And then we ended up adding 3 more trappers in August and September. The cooperator traps are basically the same thing we're running, but they're on public land or hard to access properties. And we've had a number of state agencies and other nonprofit organizations offer to do this. Pardon me. And then what we end up doing is we'll provide the bottles, the orange juice, and all the supplies, and even help them with getting the samples together. And this really saves us a lot of time because some areas of the state, it's actually very difficult for us to get access, especially when you're dealing with a port like a border crossing up in Blaine, or any of the ports, or something like an oil refinery. You end up losing half the day just trying to clear security or to get into a very tough place to work. And so this has been a huge help to us. And our friends at the USDA APHIS have actually helped us out quite a bit with some of these really difficult to reach places. And then again, what just absolutely thrills me is, you know, over 1,200 citizen scientist traps, and these are the yellow dots that you see. And you know, if we zoom out, you'll see there's quite a few, basically all throughout the Puget Sound region, which are areas we believe you know, might be at risk due to the fact that we think these probably came over in a cargo container or something like that. Anybody who wants to set a trap, and we're recommending, you know, mostly Whatcom, Skagit, those areas kind of where we know we have the issue, is welcome to do so. We basically requested that folks run traps from July 1st until the end of this month. And so if you want to hang one up and, you know, just take a look over the next couple of weeks, we have some pretty good detailed trapping instructions with pictures over top. Towards the top of our main Hornet page, you can see a link to the trapping page, and you can follow the directions there. All right, so the other half of this was supposed to be outreach and communications, and this has gone very well for us. We couldn't be more thrilled with the kind of attention that the media has paid to this, and it's really gone out of the way to help people kind of get on board and help us with these activities. The aggressive campaign of radios and billboards was basically directed at the impacted counties. So if you go up to Ferndale, you'll see these giant Asian giant hornet billboards asking people to report them. We had some viral media interviews that led to some overwhelming public interest. So what happened is we had an article from the New York Times, which appeared just after Christmas, and we got a few hits on our websites, on our Facebook page and things like that. And for whatever reason, they came out a second time in May and followed one of our entomologists, Chris Looney, into the field to take pictures of experimental traps. And when they ran that story, they called it Murder Hornet for some reason, even though nobody really uses that. In fact, it was probably a bad translation when he was double checking the name with a guy in Japan. But this, for whatever reason, really captured people's attentions, and me and the other 4 staff members involved in this, basically we're doing media interviews and things probably for the next 3 weeks solid. I mean, anytime from 5 a.m. till 9 at night. And I got to see my name appear on a Russian news channel. My relatives from Hong Kong called me and told me that they were watching me on the news. I mean, we just never had a pest go this crazy viral before. And to us, it was kind of a routine event. We get introductions of invasive pests all the time, and usually nobody cares. They just want to hear that we took care of it, but everybody is very interested in this. And we ended up getting 4,000 public reports. To put that into perspective, over the last 10 years, I don't think we've had 500. So to get over 4,000 since May really does overwhelm the system. And those are just the ones we had time to track and record. And so you put all that into perspective, what that has led to is actually 4 detections, which is really good, because generally speaking, I would say in 10 years of running emerald ash borer outreach campaigns in Pennsylvania, we had 1 citizen call in a correct emerald ash borer hit in 10 years. And that's out of, you know, just a couple of thousand calls, and we've already had 4. And so it's been a really good component, and we're going to be continuing this going into next year. Once we actually trap one, and our traps mostly kill them, they'll swim around in the orange juice for a while, but eventually they'll succumb and die. We'll replace most of the traps in the area with a live trap, and that's just a version that does not allow the hornet to fall down into the orange juice. So the idea is that once we get a live one, we'll chill them down on ice to keep them from flying around and stinging us, and we'll affix a Bluetooth tag, and we'll try to track the hornet back to the nest. Basically, you use a cell phone app to measure signal strength. We may turn this into a public thing next year if we can get it to work properly this year. And that will basically bring us to a general nest area. And we do this by sending 3 people out kind of in 3 different areas, and we're able to triangulate by seeing an increase in strength, signal strength from the Bluetooth tag. So it's not precise. It's not like it's giving you a little dot in the woods that you all walk to. It's basically telling you a tagged hornet is somewhere in the area, and if you step this direction, the signal gets a little stronger. If you step the other direction, it gets a little weaker. So it's kind of like the hot cold game you play when you're a kid, but we're doing it with these funky little cell phone receptor deals that you see there. We did actually try this last week. We were alerted to Asian giant hornets repeatedly attacking paper wasp nests at a residence in Blaine. And this is a little to the east of our grid, actually. So it was great that the person called it in. He hung a track and got a second one the next day. And so Dr. Looney went up to meet with him just to see what was going on in the area. And one happened to fly up, and he was able to net it. He threw that in a cooler, called us in from all points of the state here, and we converged upon this poor property owner's house, and they were great, cooperated with us, just really went out of their way to make us feel welcome, to help us do our job. We attempted to glue the tracker onto the Asian giant hornet, and as we were waiting for the glue to dry, unfortunately it didn't dry fast enough, and the tag slipped off the hornet, and the wings of the hornet came into contact with the glue, rendering it not capable of flight. It's likely we're not going to be using glue in the future. We will be tying them with a thin thread to the thin part of the hornet's waist. This is a technique they use in Japan to hang streamers and follow them back by sight, and also that they use in Europe to tie on radio tags as well. And so we did actually practice that after we realized she wasn't going to be able to fly, and we were able to get the tag tied onto her just fine. The tag and the trackers and the trackers function pretty normally, and so we're pretty confident it will get us at least very close to a nest if we don't manage to damage the wings the next time we try this. And the homeowner has called back saying that additional hornets have been visiting, and for your information, we actually found I believe it was an additional 5 or 6 in the area. And so we know we have a nest, and we have a very good chance of finding that in this next week here, and getting back to the nest and taking that out. Once we get kind of close to the area, we can actually use a thermal imaging device. We have this is a photograph of a hand warmer actually buried in one of the many mole holes that I have on my property here. But as you can see, even though it's underground, it puts off a pretty good heat signature. The nest we know is about, I believe it's 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And so we know kind of the temperature we're looking for. And that's going to enable us, once we get kind of close to it, using the trackers to really pinpoint it and narrow it down. And we've tested this a few times. When it's very hot out, it doesn't work so well. But if it's, you know, in the 60s or 70s, these things do light up like a Christmas tree. And so this is the one on the left is actually a picture of the FLIR trained on a bald-faced hornet nest on the side of a tree on my property. And you can see it's quite visible, and kind of important for us to have this because, as I mentioned before, if you get a little too close to the nest, they will defend it pretty vigorously. So we want to be able to locate it from a bit of a distance. Once we have found a nest, we need to obtain landowner consent. And I will tell you this, most everyone that we have approached has had absolutely no issue with us putting on our spacesuits and going out and trying to kill Asian giant hornet on their property. In fact, most are saying, yes, do whatever you need to do, please get it off my property. And so we're hoping that kind of cooperation continues, but you know, we've all been alive a long time, and not everybody wants government people in spacesuits on their property. So you know how it goes. But anyway, so it's actually quite uncomfortable. We do actually have to wear these very heavy suits, and these are not like your typical beekeeping suits. These are basically a thick, light foam, and so they're kind of breathable. They have a fan in the helmet. You can't see it from this angle, and if your hair is a little too tall, your hair actually gets caught up in the fan, so that's no fun. And then these are direct from China. And I wear a size 12 shoe, so I'm going to tell you right now, their double X large, which is the largest you can get, comes with a size 10 boot. And so it's a bit of a stretch for me to get into these things. And um, I'm not as physically overweight as some of our other staff members. So we've been having all kinds of fun wearing these suits. And the worst part is we don't even know if they work yet. So we're kind of taking a bit of a risk. The original plan, since most hornets will be in the nest at nighttime, was to do this after dark. And we did actually practice this once already. And you can see us kind of doing our night kill event. The original plan of attack was to use a pesticide, but as we got to researching it more and as we met with some of the folks who collect yellow jacket venom for a living, we really just ended up settling on it's better if we use a shop vac with this fancy little Hornet chamber that you see here attached to it. We plug that into a generator. We have CO2 fire extinguishers in case it gets a little out of control, but basically the vacuum is strong enough that anything that comes out of that hole goes straight into the collection tube there. We drop that into dry ice and then they go off to be DNA tested. After we've sucked out as many hornets as we think are in there, we go ahead and we put a tube attached to a CO2 tank, and we knock out everything else with CO2 gas. This is actually a really effective method for dropping down insects. In fact, our first tagging attempts on bald-faced hornets, we were using CO2 to put them asleep instead of ice. And within less than half a second, they drop to the floor dead. They can't handle having oxygen replaced with direct CO2. And because they nest in the ground and it's fairly airtight, we'll be able to knock out anything else that's in there before they come pouring out. And then we're unfortunately required to dig the nest out and get the rest of the brood and the queen if she didn't bother to come out, and everything else. And then we'll chill those down as well. But that could be a little tough. The nests aren't just in the ground; they like to nest at the base of trees, and so we may need mattocks, sawzall to get rid of roots. Pickaxe if we run into a lot of rocks and things like that. But generally speaking, we believe once we get past those impediments, the whole thing will go pretty smooth. The folks in Canada used only CO2 fire extinguishers. The guy who was actually kind of at the head of the hole there, he was stung 7 times. He said he was in bed the next day with flu-like symptoms because it really just knocked him out. But we're hoping for no stings, and we just suck them all into the chamber before they even know what hit them. And that's kind of the plan of attack there. After we're done excavating and everything, we're going to use a Japanese beekeeper trick, and that's to take one live Asian giant hornet, stick it on a glue board, and it will then start producing alarm pheromones. And this will draw others to it. And that's what we'll leave to get any that maybe were out and about. One of the main things we learned during our nighttime exercise is that we don't want to do it at night. It really puts us at a pretty severe disadvantage. We're figuring they're also probably still mostly going to be in the nest very early in the morning. So now we're shooting for kind of a crack of dawn assault, if you will. And that's kind of how we're going to do that. We'll keep the area roped off. We're really not letting anybody within 250 yards of that. There's enough for us to worry about. And then if everything goes wrong and the suits aren't actually as effective as advertised, then we only have a couple of people that we're responsible for in the area. But we're looking forward to doing this soon. With the amount of hornets visiting paper wasp nests in the neighborhood that was just discovered last week, we think we do have a good chance of finding that particular nest and getting it out. Some of the other nests or some of the other areas that we know we have a problem this year, we're just not getting hits in the traps like they are in this neighborhood up there. So we'll keep on it though as much as we can. We've been researching new detection and eradication methods. I just explained the new eradication method we'll be using over what we planned originally. But we started out, and the Mount Baker beekeepers have been really wonderful. They helped us test a trap design based on creating sap flow from an oak tree. All of the literature and many photographs and many communications from our counterparts in Japan and Korea have basically said that in the spring when queens emerge, they feed on sap on oak trees. And so rather than try to cook up something that resembled sap on an oak tree, we went out, damaged oak trees, put a glue board on it, put a bird excluder on there, and we tried this out. It didn't work at all, but you know, had to give it a try. We're also going to be testing a few other different things like the alarm pheromone. That's been running probably since the beginning of September. It hasn't picked anything up, even in areas where we've already picked them up in orange juice traps. And so we're wondering, maybe there's something going wrong with that, but that one's that one's being provided to us by a Washington company who also makes traps. Of course, we're testing new tracking tools as well. And we've been putting a lot of things into practice. We've added some new traps in the areas where we have not been getting hits since we got a few detections earlier in the year. We've had live traps running in the Birch Bay area and in the Custer area since a couple of trap hits, but just no additional captures since then. So we are very fortunate to have WSU help us out installing some Sentinel hives, and the hives will basically be out there as bait. We know they like to attack honeybee hives this time of year, and so we've put those very close to where we got detections, and Tim Lawrence and Sue Kobe and Chris Looney have gone out and done this. And you can see they have fixed some of the Japanese Asian giant hornet excluders. And there's a website you can visit to see how to make these things. We're not recommending that anybody go and do this yet, just because we know that the Japanese consider them to be very effective. But we also don't know Asian giant hornet to be anywhere but Whatcom County. So if you're in Whatcom and you want to do this, by all means, talk to Tim Lawrence, give our Chris Looney a call, and he'll probably refer you to Tim Lawrence, but give them a call and, you know, see about getting some instructions for making these. These will actually trap the hornets live, and so that's one of the things that we're also adding. We're also toying around, since they feed on fruit, with damaging fruit and training a camera on it. We've run into a bit of a glitch. We think we have located a camera that will meet our needs now. We were originally going to use a trail cam, but it turns out that those are not effective for insects because they are not motion sensitive. They actually key in on thermal changes in thermal temperature, and the hornets just don't, I guess, do enough to trip the camera off. But since hornets are known to attack damaged fruit throughout the day, and we can kind of get thousands of pictures of them without even being there, we were considering doing some of these, so we may be adding those very soon. And so not stopping with just the orange juice and rice wine, which, you know, I have 1,000 citizens who have been doing these since July and are probably fairly frustrated they haven't caught anything yet, but that's a good thing. All of those negative detection points are very valuable as well. Results. Basically, the outreach and the survey have combined for 12 hornet detections in 2020 alone, and overall 15 have been found in Washington since 2019. And you can kind of see on this map here, this is the top corner of Whatcom County, and then on to British Columbia, and Nanaimo is off to your left there, at least as I'm looking at it. And you can see there's probably something going on. Only the Nanaimo one is a nest. Everything else is usually a single specimen, except for a new cluster, which I'm not sure if I can get my mouse onto it for you there, but it's the one that's a little to the east of Blaine, and Blaine is the town that's right on the Canadian border there where you see all the cluster of dots. And so we're fairly certain we're dealing with 2, possibly 3 nests this year. Most of the hits that are in Blaine are from 2019, and we have not received anything in 2020 from Blaine yet. So right as of now, we're looking at Custer, a little to the east of Blaine, and then 1 queen down in Bellingham, but killing that queen essentially killed the nest, so we're pretty good there, and we've had no additional hits in the area. Same thing up in Langley, which is the one in Canada just north of north of everything. And then the one in White Rock is from last year as well. So that kind of shows you this is what we're dealing with Asian giant hornet wise. But this concerns us because every nest is capable of producing a couple hundred queens in just about a month's time here. And so we're doing everything we can to make sure we locate the nests we are aware of and take them out before they start producing breeding cast and create new ones for next year. Kind of getting towards the end here. So we really want everybody to report and report immediately. The folks who we were with last week were awesome, but they actually held the report for a week before calling us and after they got a second one. Giving us one more week to be out there would have helped us a little bit, but you know, it's tough to criticize folks for calling in at all. But again, do it quickly, don't put it off, don't wait till next week. We actually are pretty darn responsive. And for beekeepers, I'm gonna tell you something new. We're actually even more responsive. Certainly, if the specimen is dead, collect it, throw it in a container, but we don't want you handling live specimens if you can help it. They really can hurt you. If possible, get a photograph specifically of the head and the back of the abdomen, if at all possible. Note the exact location of where you took the photo if all you can get is a photo, and then call or email our pest program at the numbers you see here. hornets@agr.wa.gov is a really good way to do it. The phone calls take us a long time to respond to. We're a lot faster with the emails, and that comes from the poor girl who gets stuck responding to 40 to 50 of these every single day since May. So tips for making a very helpful report for us: if you can note the address, or if you're really clever, the latitude and longitude is really nice for us. It takes a lot of guesswork out of it. If you can provide a Google Map screenshot and use the snippet tool to put a little dot on it for us, that helps too. Certainly note the date of the collection of the observation, and if possible, if you are not the property owner, if you know who the property owner is or have contact information, that actually saves us several hours as well. Even though we are here to help, the government is actually not allowed to just traipse you onto your property and do whatever you want. So we at least in my programs, take the time to actually contact the property owner whenever possible, and you know, get the proper permissions first. So that saves us a lot of time if you know that. If it is safe to do so, of course, get multiple photographs, and if the specimen is alive and flies away, the biggest thing that helps us out is if you can note the direction it flies away and when it leaves. Most hornet species, once they are done feeding or doing something, will make what's called, curiously, a beeline right back to their nest. And so if you can note the direction they fly off in, you get our search started in a big hurry, and it's really helpful to us. Because we are now entering what we know to be a slaughter phase, and we know we've had beehives attacked in 2019, we set up a separate line for beekeepers. And I will pause on this slide a little. If you're in Whatcom County or any of the surrounding counties up there that we feel are at really high risk, if you are experiencing a beehive attack, and this is a beehive attack only, so you go out to the yard and you see giant yellow-headed hornets taking your bees and decapitating them, give us a call at this number immediately. I was out fishing on the jetty on my day off yesterday, and we got a call, and of course we responded to it. So literally speaking, this will get you a live person, probably me, Chris Looney, our eradication coordinator, Ryan Wojon. You may have to wait on the line a little bit, but you will actually get to talk to a live person. Please do not call this number for updates or things like that. The call I got was a gentleman from Louisiana who wanted an update on Asian giant hornet and how it's going. Not really what this line is for. So this is for you beekeepers. If your hive starts getting attacked, call us. We don't want you to kill it immediately. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but if you allow that hive or the nest of the Asian giant hornet to get through to breeding phase, you will be dealing with more nests next year. It's better to give up a few of your girls, let us get up there, get a few of them, get back to the nest and kill it so that we can absolutely take out the Asian giant hornet nest. Certainly note the date and time of the observation, provide the location of the hive that's being attacked, and then note the direction they fly when they leave. And so that's what we can all do to work together. And like I said, we're all just kind of waiting around to don our spacesuits, come out, converge on the area, and suck them right out of the ground. That's what we're looking forward to doing. With that, thank you for your attention, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sven. That was a great update. Your comment about people not being sometimes too willing to let people from the government onto their land reminds me of a postdoc that I had once while on a ranch in Texas. In question, he said, and I kid you not, he said, "We're from the government and we're here to help you." And I couldn't believe he said it. I worked for the USDA at the time. But the guy just kind of smiled at me and made some comment that made the postdoc be quiet. We have a number of questions, so I'll just kind of go through them really quick. How far will they fly from their nest?
Sorry, say again?
It was how far will the hornet from their nest?
Oh, okay. So basically, they generally forage within 1 to 2 kilometers of the nest, but they're capable of foraging up to 8 kilometers away.
Wow.
We believe the one we're dealing with up to the east of Blaine there, we believe that's somewhere in a huge cluster of trees surrounding it. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, but we haven't given up yet. And we've just been adding live trap after live trap, and we'll keep at it till we find them.
Thanks, Brian. Here's another question. How many hornets live in one colony?
Up to several hundred. It's a little tough to answer that because we don't know how efficient they will be here, but we've heard anywhere between 400 to 700 in Japan, Korea, where they're extremely suitable. I will say this, the habitat and the temperature here in the Pacific Northwest is really ideal for Asian giant hornets, so we could see them if they have ample food supplies around, getting up to that 400 to 700 range. The one in Nanaimo, I believe, had 234 is what they took out of that, something like that.
Okay. A question from William. How did they locate the nest in Nanaimo?
Well, they were very fortunate, as I said. So it was in a public park in downtown Nanaimo. If you look at the screenshot, there's trees around, but really this is the only place they could have been. And it was the only place between 3 detections that they had. So they had 3 detections that were kind of spaced out, and they kind of went to the middle of it. And actually, one of the beekeepers that was helping with that activity found it kind of the wrong way. They came out and stung him. So he got nailed one time. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. There's one for. I'm not sure what if they're talking about a beekeeping association, but the one question is: has the hornet affected the association's liability insurance coverage? I don't know if that's within your purview or not to answer that.
But. Well, it absolutely isn't. But I could see folks maybe wanting to have extra insurance if we fail at this and they become generally established in an area. I mean, I could see that becoming a question, but I'm not qualified to answer it.
Okay. Here's a question. When destroying the nest, what will happen to all the recovered hornets? Will they be destroyed after they've been killed, or can some be made available to beekeepers to help educate at events in their clubs?
Okay, well, first of all, if you send me an email, we actually purchased several hundred specimens from Japan. And so those can definitely be made available. That's what we bought them for. And we will be happy to distribute them to anybody who wants, display material. The ones that we kill will actually be put on dry ice and then moved to a -80 freezer and then shipped off for an RNA and DNA study that's being done by the federal government.
Okay. Is it known yet what climate these hornets will or will not survive in? I guess this is sort of a question about their potential range in the U.S.
Sure. There's actually 2 to 3 papers that came out within the last month that basically take models of what's gone on in Japan, Korea, and also southern China and some places like that, and compared them to the United States. And the Pacific Northwest is absolutely ideal. Once you cross over to the mountains to eastern Washington, though, not so much. It's a desert there. It's not so good for them. But basically, anything east of the Mississippi River is completely suitable. And so you're looking at Pacific Northwest, and mostly eastern United States is going to be really good for it. Even better as you go south, apparently.